Okay, so I wanted to give an update on my top 10 films for the year so far. So here we go. At number 10, we've got Trap. And so I've seen this movie a few times now. I've sat and thought about it a bit. And there are some parts in this movie that are absolutely ridiculous. And for some people, it sort of breaks their experience. And it's like I understand that. But for me, when I've sat and thought about it, I feel like they're ridiculous in a way that is to the benefit of the film. Um, like in the context of the film, they're ridiculous in the best way possible. And so you take a film that's able to do that, and then you throw on top of that Josh Hartnett's performance in this, which is one of my favorite of the year, and is so good that it's the one reason I kind of hope this might actually spawn a franchise is just because I want to see him play that character again. So yeah, you've got that. And then we've got Furiosa. And so the Mad Max franchise is one of maybe even just straight up my favorite film franchise. And this could be anywhere in like a ranking of the franchise for me from like 2 to 4 given depending on like what day you ask me and how I'm feeling. The only one I would consistently at any given time put above this because it's just straight up my favorite film on the franchise is Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. But like I said, some days, depending on how I'm feeling, I might even tell you this is just below that in my franchise ranking. But I mean, another day, maybe you ask me and I'll put Mad Max 1 and Fury Road above this. Like, kind of varies. Great movie regardless. I guess the point I'm trying to say is that there are days where I think of this movie as my second favorite movie in my favorite film franchise. So, and even at number 4, when I'm having that kind of a day, again, it's my favorite film franchise. I love all the movies. So, okay, and then at number 8, we've got Dune Part 2. And so I'm really surprised that this is already this low on my list for the year. I didn't really think it was going to go below like 5. But I feel like everything I'm putting above this does something that's a little bit more interesting to me. Whereas this mostly has going for it is that it is just the biggest spectacle film of the year. Don't get me wrong, there's obviously heavy themes in Dune. And they're definitely in this film. But they're the kind of things that, especially in the world of sci-fi, we see a lot. So again, they're not really something that makes the film stand out. The one thing that does, again, is its spectacle. Like, there are a few standout scenes that are definitely incredible scenes for their spectacle. And so this is a film that definitely was one you probably should have tried to go see in 70 millimeter or even regular IMAX, Dolby Cinema. It's a film that really probably benefits from that type of experience. Granted, if you have a good home setup, this is still going to be a great film at home. It's a great film regardless. But I feel like it's one that is better when you have that type of experience that suits a spectacle film. So, okay, and then at number 7, we've got Oddity. And so what this does for me that I would put it above Dune Part 2 is it actually gave me a very unique experience in that it's a horror film where it doesn't really set anything up that leaves you like scared at the end of the film or like with the lingering sense of dread. But during its actual runtime, it is one of the most tense and dread-inducing films I've watched. And I think that's because of, A, the direction. There's a lot of times where I feel like the camera work is just so good and it's just has you looking exactly where it wants you to. to where I feel like that sort of builds that suspense. But then also the sound design. If there is anything that does linger in my head about this film, in terms of it like leaving me with a sense of dread, it is the sound. This is one of the few times I'm kind of happy this movie didn't get a Dolby Cinema release, because just thinking about that sound design is actually terrifying. Okay, and then at number 6, we've got Beetlejuice. And so, like, I have this above Dune Part 2 because I feel like in the long run, this is probably the more rewatchable movie, because, again, this isn't a movie where I have to be in the mood for, like, a spectacle film. It's just a fun movie. So it's got that. It's got the fact that, again, I feel like it stands out a little bit more for the fact that legacy sequels just generally aren't this good. And as far as legacy sequels go, this is one of the few where I honestly think I like this more than the original film. And so because of that, that's another reason this kind of stands out compared to Dune Part 2, where that's a Part 2 to a Part 1. So then between that and the fact that the cast is just great. I mean, you've got Michael Keaton, obviously, but then you've got Winona Ryder and Jenna Ortega, and I love them both individually, and I love them together in this film. So there's that. Next, we've got Evil Does Not Exist. And so this is a film where there's two different parts of the experience that are really good. There's the majority of the film, like literally 99% of the film, where you're just experiencing the life and world of some of these characters, and has a lot to do with nature. And so for that, it's a really beautiful film, both in just visuals and some of what it's trying to get across to you. But so you've got that for 99% of the film, and then literally the end of the film, that final 1%, maybe 2%, you get this scene at the end that is very abrupt, very out of nowhere, and it makes you recontextualize and sort of rethink what you've experienced throughout the entire rest of the film leading to that ending. And so that's a kind of cool experience. That is a reason I have this movie so high. And then next we've got Perfect Days. And so watched this movie a few times now as well. The last time I watched it, I moved it up quite a bit. And I moved it up quite a bit, A, for how I felt about it on that rewatch, but B, because I've also kind of learned a little about how this movie came to be. And it's a really interesting story, and one of those things that kind of makes you recontextualize and rethink some things about the film. And so when the Olympics were supposed to happen in Tokyo recently, Tokyo had started this project called the Tokyo Toilet, where they were building like these really cool, elaborate like bathrooms that were kind of like art pieces. Just because of how busy Tokyo was going to be for the Olympics, they just thought it'd be nice and interesting to have. And then so the Olympics didn't end up taking place there. And afterwards, Wim Wenders had been asked to come do like a documentary about them. I don't know that it really was meant to be like a film, but some form of documentary about this project. And in attempting to do that, he came up with the idea for this film and decided he was just going to shoot a feature film instead. And so that's an interesting story that kind of makes the film a little bit more interesting to me. And then you take that and then you just have one of the most relaxing films and one of the best, like, just meditations on life in the film. Like, this is the kind of film that would be just perfect to watch on a Sunday when you just don't want to do anything else. And then the main character, the guy who plays Hirayama, I'm not gonna butcher his name, gives an absolutely incredible performance. I like the final scene and hearing a little bit about how like that scene was shot, which again makes you think about it a little bit differently, is just really good. Okay, then number 3, we've got La Chimera. This is a film where I've rewatched it, and upon rewatching it, it went way up for me. I'm not sure. I must have just been in a weird mood the first time I watched this, because I had a completely different experience with it. But I don't know. Everything about this film is just kind of beautiful. Just the story, the characters, the ending. It's just a great package all the way around. Yeah, this is one of the ones where I feel like it's probably hardest for me to explain exactly what I like about it. But then another thing this film has going for it is you've got Josh O'Connor, and I like his performance in this actually a lot more than I do in Challengers, which is a film I still like. But his performance in this is better. Okay, and then next you've got The Beast. And so this film just mashes so much stuff together to where you think it should be an incoherent mess, but then it manages to just all fit together perfectly and make an absolute fever dream of a film. You've got a lot of... It's like your main premise is set up by sort of like a sci-fi element. So you've got your sci-fi element, and then you've got different stories being told that take place in different time periods. So then you've got that element added to this, and then you wrap all that in like this layer of surrealism that's sort of like Lynchian. And that's not a term I generally love to use, but if there's ever a film where I feel like it works, it is this one. So like I said, you've got all those elements coming together to just make an absolute incredible film. Yeah, and then Lee Seydoux, if I'm saying her name correctly, gives an absolutely incredible performance in this. Not just once, but like 2 or 3 times. She does screams in this that are like all-time screams, especially the scream at the end. So yeah, and then at number 1 we've got About Dry Grasses. And what I love about this film is it sort of does something similar to Perfect Days, in that you're just sort of in the world of these characters and sort of viewing things along with them, just in their life. But rather than being like a meditation on life and being like an easygoing experience, it actually tries to pose philosophical and like political questions to you through the characters, and sort of has you wrestling with these things throughout the film. And so like there's moments where it definitely slows down for a bit and is calm, and you get to just experience again just the lives of these characters. But then there's other moments where again you're sort of posed questions, and just those two experiences combined really make an interesting film. And there's one scene in this that is very abrupt, very out of nowhere, and might be a make or break part of the film for people. For me, I feel like I had to really think about it for a second, but when I thought about it, I feel like I'm on the side that it definitely works for the film and enhances the film for me. But I can picture people saying that it just takes them out of the film. Like I wouldn't be mad at somebody for saying that is their experience with this. But yeah, no, for me it works. Yeah, like I said, this is just an interesting experience the whole way through, and for being like 3.5 hour movie, it's just something to say that it actually can hold your attention for that length of time, where it's not a movie with like any action or horror. Like there's nothing traditionally gripping going on for literally the whole length of this film, yet it's probably one of the ones that has held my attention the best all year, even given its runtime. And so, yeah, that's a lot to say about that. And yeah, that is my top 10 for the year so far.